The perfect D&D inspired RPG to hold you over until Larian's next project might actually not be what you're thinking. At the Game Awards, there was a lot of hype around an RPG that was much hype, one that we have been waiting for years and years. It was really an exciting time to be a fan of RPGs, getting to see something that we want so badly. And it actually had a stellar trailer. I'm talking, of course, about Witcher 4. But believe it or not, it's actually not the game, the RPG that we saw at the Game Awards that I am the most excited about, especially as a fan of Baldurs Gate 3. The most exciting trailer from that was actually, well, this one.
How dare you come alone, Shadwin? For many years you've sent waves of stone soldiers we've decimated. What can you achieve with your solitude that thousands couldn't?
Not thousands. Millions!
Solasta II's announcement at the Game Awards was a bit of a surprise to me, but a welcome one. More surprising than the announcement, it'll actually be playable in early access extremely soon, 2025, with a demo coming before that. Perhaps this is something I should have expected, but instead all of my focus had been on The Witcher 4 and hoping for gameplay trailers for Exodus and Fable. We got The Witcher 4 trailer, a game we've known about for quite some time now. And we got an Exodus gameplay trailer shortly after the Game Awards. But Solasta II is just the kind of game that's going to get me really excited because of where Solasta sits in proximity to Baldurs Gate 3. And I, for one, can't wait to start rolling more D20s in another fantasy-inspired CRPG. Solasta II is another tactical RPG where you'll create and guide a party of 4 adventurers to the faraway island of Neokos. You are embarking on a quest driven by family legacy in the shadow of a looming threat from the ancient and enigmatic Shadwin. It'll be up to you to decide what choices will you make to push back the impending tide of corruption. In a sense, the game is the continuation of the first, but it takes place decades after the initial game story. In Solasta II, you will have more freedom to roam than in the first title, exploring the land of Neokos, and probably getting yourself murdered by some unfriendly foes when your dice rolls fails you. Or your friends, because this game also will include co-op with up to 4 players. But as of right now, I do not believe it will include couch co-op. We'll get back to some more details about Solasta II, but before we get too much further, I want to talk about the first game and get kind of like, especially if you're a little bit unfamiliar with it, and really how that is actually why I'm so excited about this, because this is a direct sequel. Solasta, the original, launched into early access in October of 2020 and launched into full on May of 2021. Solasta is a playground for fans of tabletop RPGs, built on a license from Wizards of the Coast to bring D&D 5.1 rule set to a game before we were graced by the legendary work of Larian Studios' Baldurs Gate 3. It was a tactical turn-based RPG that did something very well, just like BG3. It made a sometimes arcane feeling combat system feel accessible. As a longtime D&D player who always relied on my DM to carry me along like a lost puppy who doesn't know which way is up, I appreciated that in this tabletop-inspired CRPG. But launching just 2 years before Baldurs Gate 3, well, that's rough. Solasta is generally overshadowed by BG3 due to their similarities. I mean, when I say D&D turn-based RPG at this point in 2024 or 2025, most people have something else in mind. And to be brutally honest, Solasta is not Baldur's Gate 3. It has issues. Its story when I played failed to grab me the way that BG3 did, and its companions felt more flat. But in Solasta, I see a lot of that potential that existed for Larian Studios when they were just hitting the ground running with the Divinity Original Sin series. And that is why I am so excited about Solasta II. I want to see how they build off of the foundation of Solasta, what lessons they learned in the past 4 years, not just from their own game, but watching the CRPG space as a whole in the time with huge successes like Baldur's Gate 3 to games that have struggled out of the gate in their own early access period like Greedfall 2. For Solasta 2, everything we've heard so far sounds like refinement, which is exactly what I would hope for. I mentioned Greedfall 2 specifically because while I'm personally still very excited about the game, they've run headlong into troubles associated with dramatically changing their gameplay, from ARPG in Greedfall 1 to CRPG in Greedfall 2, among other issues. Solasta 2 is a direct sequel with the same gameplay tenets, the same core which in my humble opinion is the perfect way to iterate and refine. You have these lumps of clay and now you can start refining the features. Dark Souls to Elden Ring, Divinity Original Sin to Baldur's Gate 3, Solasta to Solasta 2. But don't just take my words for it, take a listen to the devs themselves.
Solasta 2, the great sequel to Solasta 1. We came back to Solasta with a vengeance because we know about all the things that we did in Solasta and we know about all the things that we didn't really, feel satisfied about. And we're like, okay, you know what? Let's do it much better this time. And that is also why we moved on to Unreal 5, right, Mathieu?
Yes, absolutely. So when we were in the light plan of Solasta 1, I would say, back in 2021, there were possible options in what we would do next. But after some time and looking at the growing success of the game, especially with the updates we did, we really thought it was a good idea, especially for a new studio, to do better what you've done before, rather than to go to other directions where there's a lot of uncertainties. And also we knew we had limitation because of the tech. The artists were crying about the light
yes,
or the lots of hurdles. Even though Unity was great to build the first game and to make tools easily, it didn't allow us to go farther away, to go to, well, we needed a second stage for the rocket ship, and that second stage we thought was Unreal. So that's why we made this move, and also choosing a new technology and making another type of game, it's 2 risks. So we wanted to have just 1 risk, and the one risk was to change technology and to learn how to use it and to leverage it to do something, to do a better and bigger Solasta.
This was part of an almost 2-hour-long community stream from the devs of Solasta 2, where they took questions and answered to the best of their ability. Many of the questions were pretty deep, like about movement, skill checks, combat, classes, etc. Combat is the most robust and fleshed out part of the original Solasta, so it's not surprising that that's where the questions mostly were. I'm going into this next sequel with that's what they're going to be able to nail, the combat and the classes. Where I'm looking for the most advancement from the first game are in places like the visuals and the storytelling. And it sounds like that's actually where they're putting in some budget.
Okay, let's see if there are... Oh yeah, this one, Mathieu, you can answer, I think. Will Solasta 2 be fully voice acted?
Yes, of course, as usual. So we've started... recording with some partners to have very cool voices. I think we hope to improve the quality of voice acting with these new partners, but we'll have to deliver on that when you played our first demo in some time now. But yes, it's one of the goals is to still have this more relaxed way of watching the narration by just listening to people playing and not reading lots of text, even though there will be lots of interesting lore in documents and books and other elements. But yes, the dialogues, the narration should be fully voice acted.
You can confirm that we're putting more effort in voice acting this time, right? More budget on this as well?
If you mean money, yes, we're spending more.
Yeah, we've been putting an emphasis also on voice acting because it was one of the like a lot of people here who have asked the question have mentioned is like the fact that the voice acting in Solasta 1 was fairly uneven made it so that sometimes it could take you out of your immersion, and this is something that we did note and that we want to do better on. And it goes for the same for animations, right, Xavier? I think we've put a bit of work in there.
The character animations and everything, the facial animation, body animation, we have much more powerful technology now. A bit experimental, but it seems to be working very well.
And then of course, there's this, which had me really excited.
Just regarding the actors, it's true that we have, for the first game, we have worked with limited budget, and we tried to do things fast, and I think a bit too fast. So I advocating for taking more time for the actors to get in their character and have a chance to redo things. And I think it will improve a lot the quality of the result. And with the addition of facial animation based on the actors' facial motion capture and the body animation, the result should be much better than the first game. So we're working on that.
As
what Xavier is not saying is that he has performed for the motion capture himself.
Yes, I was going.
So we may have some photos to show at some point, but
yes. So
as a general rule, Emile, yes, we can say that we invested a lot in narration, tools, and actors and performance. We developed lots of stuff for the new cutscenes to make sure it's more immersive and natural, and you feel like you're living the adventure of the plot.
As we go through this, though, as we talk about the improvements that they're making to things like cinematics and voice acting and visuals of the game by switching over to Unreal Engine, something I'm actually really excited about, especially because I wasn't a huge fan of like their grid-based movement that they had in the first game, I do want to kind of go back on one of the things I was talking about at the very beginning of this video, the comparison to Baldurs Gate 3. This game is not going to be Baldurs Gate 3. It is not a game that is inspired by Baldurs Gate 3. It is not a game trying to be Baldurs Gate 3. The comparison that I want to make is still to Larian Studios, but the comparison that I want to make is to a Divinity Original Sin to Divinity Original Sin 2, hoping that this is a marked improvement from Solasta 1 to Solasta 2, so we get another studio that is kind of making these CRPGs, these fantasy IP CRPGs that are really compelling and fun and tactical, that really kind of stick with us. Solasta 2 will be made with a team about 35 compared to the hundreds that made Baldur's Gate 3, but it still looks like it could potentially be one of the better CRPGs coming out in the next few years, and I'm excited to see how this game builds off of the first title, what it adds, and if it's a clear progression in the right direction for better and better games from this studio. Let me know down in the comment section below if you are excited about Solasta 2. Now, I will say, like, Solasta had a fair amount of like paid DLC, so comparing it directly to Larian might be a little rough, but there is a lot of similarities, and the team behind the game, getting to watch that dev interview of them, they seem very earnest. They seem earnest in making a game, a good game, and so I'm excited to see what happens with this second title. I also kind of want to go back to Solasta and play another co-op.